Well, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Good morning if you're watching this live. If you're watching this on YouTube, then good day. Thanks for joining us today. So welcome to week number 69 of the weekly financial roundtable. Remember, money's not the most important thing in life, but it is like oxygen on the gotta have it scale. So I'm Tom Kuhn. I'm your curator and host for these weekly roundtables. We certainly hope that you have some light bulb moments today. Qnity here is to support you in your quest, not only to greater profitability, but to doing what you love and having a great quality of life. Going from something that's complicated, overwhelming, and confusing to a simpler path towards greater prosperity, whatever that means to you, following a simple, visual, and actionable approach. So to prosper, manage your ATM, your attention, time, and money. And it's not lost on us that you are busy people. Your time is precious. So thank you for joining us today. We much appreciate it. Our last guest, which was pre-holiday, December 15th, was Kevin Cameron from Pivot Point. Great session. Talked about moments of joy and how things are changing in the education industry. So if you weren't part of that session, go to our YouTube channel and check it out. This week's guest will be Gordon Miller, Harebrained CEO. We're going to have a great conversation with Gordon. Gordon did an amazing presentation about 6 weeks ago, 5-6 weeks ago at the PBA Executive Summit. And I took so many pictures of his slides, I stopped taking pictures of them. And there's so many different takeaways. We will welcome Gordon to our Brain Trust today. And no doubt he will provide some light bulb moments. And he'll be added to our growing Brain Trust. If any of you want to join us as a member of our Brain Trust, you want to be a guest on these roundtables, please reach out to me. We err on the side of inclusivity. So we're looking for multiple different voices. And this is a forum where people can discuss the issues and opportunities as it relates to the professional beauty industry, pointing to the financial aspects of it. So again, we hope you have some light bulb moments today. I do need to share the excitement. I'm so darn excited about this event. And this is the event that's coming up May 15th through 17th. It'll be the inaugural Phil conference. It'll be in Scottsdale, Arizona. It also will be a celebration of our Brain Trust and light bulb moments, where we will be doing a fundraiser with Beauty Changes Lives on Sunday night, May 15th in Scottsdale. All members of our Brain Trust, of course, are invited and will be acknowledged. But this is open to all of you. The Fill event will be an opportunity to fill your bucket and step away, as well as fill the gaps in your business, execution, profitability, growth, leadership, and engagement. So registration is going to be opening in a matter of days. We have several of you that have already acknowledged that you're going to attend, many of you. So certainly, regardless of whether you register right away or not, please put it on your calendar, save the date. You do not want to miss this event. We'll have tons of light bulb moments. I'm going to start out with a few tips before we bring Gordon on as a guest, and a few different things to think about this time of year. We've moved into 2022. And one of the things that I did over the holidays, and something that I'd love for you to consider, is to celebrate your GNAs. What are your GNAs? They're your gratitudes and accomplishments. This is a great time to really step back and to see what you were grateful for from last year, as well as your accomplishment. Now, we have a structure that can help you do that, and it's to break them down into what we call the 5 alls. This is something that's part of the Qnity Life Map. And so these gratitudes and accomplishments, broken down into professional, relational, spiritual, physical, and financial. I literally got out 9 grids and just filled up a 9 grid for each one of these, just to celebrate all of the different things that I was grateful for, as well as what I accomplished last year. It's not too late to do that. It's a great activity. It'll fuel you with confidence. It'll fuel you with energy, so you get off to a great start this year. Now, a couple other things that maybe are more team related. Do a 9 grid closure activity with your team. Formally mark the end of 2021 by getting closure. This is great to do with your team, whether it's your leadership team, your entire team, and the 9 grid is perfect for this. Simply put in the center box, closure from 2021. And what you want to do is you want to acknowledge the things that went great last year, the things that were challenges, but ultimately it's over. 2021 is over. And many of us really don't mark that event. And the 9 grid is a great, simple activity to do with your team to get closure to last year so you can move into this year with great confidence. The next thing is with your team, this is my final tip, is this is the time of year as leaders to answer the 4 questions in your business. And these questions are the follows. This is your formula for a team summit, team meeting, whether it's leadership team or your entire team. These are the questions that are incumbent upon leaders to ask and answer. Number 1, where are you? This is a state of the union. This is a little bit more about the past and what brought you to where you are right now. Where you're going is we need to communicate what the plan is, what 2022 looks like, how we're going to get there. These are the different things that are needed in order to accomplish your goals. And then the last thing is, what does that mean to each and every one of you? What's in it for you and what's expected of you? Answer the 4 questions. Where are you? Where you're going, how you're going to get there, and what it means to each and every one of you. Great format as we go into 2022. I can count many times when I've talked to a leader and they were trying to prepare their presentation for a summit or whatever. I said, it's real simple, man. All you got to do as a leader is answer these 4 questions and be sure that you acknowledge as many members of your team as possible. So anyway, those are a few tips for you. Let's get on to Gordon Miller. Gordon, why don't you come off the, let's come on camera here and let's get you to unmute. I'm going to share your extremely impressive background here. I'm kind of overwhelmed by your background, Gordon, actually. I mean, you've been in this 40 years. Pivot Point, Milady, National Cosmetology, Passion Squared. You're part of American Salon, but right now you're Harebrained CEO. Gordon, one of the best compliments that can be paid to someone. I was with your business partners who brought you on how many years ago?
4, going on 5.
And you weren't there, so they weren't saying this in front of you, but they were just effusive with praise of what a difference you made when they brought you in. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to do what I do and love being with the guys. Harebrained's a special business.
Now, I've been dying to get you as a guest for a while. And I remember having a conversation with Win Claiborne. Win's done, I don't know, like 1,000 different master podcasts.
Yes.
How many different harebrained conversations have you had in your podcast?
The numbered ones were at 223, and we've probably got another 30 on top of that were special episodes, so 275 or so.
So I'm a lightweight at 69 of these. I think.
No, you're on your way, John. And it's not about quantity; it's about quality. And when it comes to quality, you got it nailed.
Thank you for that. And you have heard from. You're so well connected, and you really have a great pulse on the beauty industry. And I was very much inspired and informed with the presentation you did in Scottsdale, PBA Executive Summit. And I'm going to show a couple of your slides. One of them was never let a good crisis go to waste. Mm-hmm. Another one was if you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at will change. And then what you did is you posed, you used research from a study. We'll talk about the study in a moment, but it was really your commentary about the research that I thought was inspiring. Now we've got about 30 minutes or so here. Mm-hmm. So we're going to do some highlights of this. Now you asked, ultimately, I realized it was 9 questions. So it fits very nicely into a 9 grid, by the way. So I took, now we're not going to cover all of these today. Right. And so now I'm done talking here. Let's just share just a little bit about the study, the context and all that. So people know a little bit about who was included, why it was done, et cetera.
Well, most importantly, it's Professional Beauty Association's annual study. So they did the research. In fact, afterwards, a lot of people thought it was mine. I kept trying to say, no, I kept putting the PBA stuff up. So PBA did a research. They sent out surveys to over 20,000 of their members, which is a very large group, the entire membership. I think it's a couple 100,000 now. And then I don't recall the exact number of respondees, but it's statistically valid. They work with a research company to actually do the work. They don't do it in the office. It's all vetted, and they come back with a bunch of conclusions. And probably most importantly, contextually, was that about right around 25% of the respondees were owners of salons. By owners, it meant they owned a either traditional commission salon or a rental salon, but not being a renter themselves. They own the business that renters rent within. And then the balance, which was just under 80%, 9% were commissioned stylists and the rest were independents. And that's actually, and I made a point of bringing that up because it's a little bit off what the industry is. So that means contextually, the results are skewed heavily away from the commission employee, but represent everybody else, pretty well, And lastly, the 75% had 10 years of experience or more in the industry. That also skews the data a little bit towards the experience level. We know industry-wide, we don't have that many experienced people on a percentage basis.
So you have a conclusion from the study, and let's jump right to the conclusion.
Sure.
We're going through another round of changes. I don't even know what the word is. I mean, eventually cancel.
Yeah.
Seems like we're right back where we were.
Yeah.
What's your conclusion? Which I think is a great place to start, actually.
Oh boy. Well, it goes back. Part of the conclusion goes back to that first quote you shared, and I'm a passionate person about sharing quotes and have for years. Which is, really to see the opportunity, because when we look through everything and there's so many parts and pieces of what we've all been through, you boil it all down, there's definitely challenges. And with all that comes opportunity. And I think the signs and signals towards that, much of it in the survey. And then, as I said at the program, I had discussions with 15 individuals from throughout the industry who were very well connected people, people with access to information, with data, with their ear to the ground, very diverse group of people. And they helped validate or, add some additional context. But I think, the big, probably my most, in my own mind, profound conclusion is a lot has changed and nothing has changed. I think the biggest lesson from the pandemic is that so much of what we've known that has always worked, and this may be different than what you're thinking my conclusion was, because I had several. I think that so much of what we talked about for all the years that I've been in the industry, most of it still holds true. Yes, there's generational shifts in attitudes, and that had happened all my 40 years. I've been through more than a few generations myself. And so, I think so much is the same, but the changes in the world change most of our lenses. So we look at things, we experience things a little bit different, I think, but when you get through all the emotions of so much of it, it takes us back to the solid things that we've proven over and over and over are the foundation of success in this industry. And much of that, for those who are most successful, deals squarely with the things that you have been talking about as Qnity and as Tom Kuhn and Aaron and your team for years and years and years. And that's one of the more exciting things. And I mentioned it, from the stage at Summit, just because I believe so strongly in it, that people paying attention to the math, finally, to the numbers, finally, in greater numbers that we've seen, I think will unlock success for so many people. It's a huge shift in mindset. And I think that if I had really had to boil everything down about pandemic for the whole country, as well as for our industry, mindsets have been changed, and in various ways.
Let's go back to math in a moment. And I know one of your conclusions that you had was that we're actually in a pretty good place. Mm-hmm. And
very, very good place.
And it paints a positive picture for the future. Mm-hmm. So that was one of your conclusions. And we spoke yesterday. We've chatted here and there. That was, and I maybe because I'm an unapologetic optimist that I attached to that conclusion.
Yeah, well, and I would add to that again, I think, mindset is critical. I think we've learned perhaps better than ever that all of our choices matter. That choices, we make them nonstop every day. And we've observed a lot of people coming through pandemic more successfully than others. And in my conversations, it often becomes clear it was choices that were being made that put them in the better position. One of the things that you would have noticed in the survey, Tom, because you pay attention to the math, is that it did paint a very positive picture. But when you saw the breakdown of data, often it was 35% positive, 35% negative, 35% neutral. And the survey folks took the neutrality and the positive as collectively being a positive position. Mm. I'm a glass empty kind of guy, so I could easily fall into the neutral and the negative of the majority, and neutral, and the same is never necessarily good, because we have to always be moving forward. But in the midst of a pandemic, you could argue that neutral is not a bad thing. We also, the geography of this crisis is so different, and it's hard to talk about what's going on collectively as a country, because there's so many different pockets and so many variations of the same issues. And, I talk to someone in certain states, and what I get is everybody thinks great. I said, well, when did it get great? It never wasn't, because we never really shut down. And then in other parts of the country, the complete opposite, so many things to consider. But I do see opportunity ahead. However, I don't know that I said this, but I think it's important to state. One of the things that can take us from a very optimistic place, and I think, what fascinates me more than anything is that across the country, record new clients, record business, people beating 2019 by significant numbers. I haven't spoken to a brand in the last 9 months that has not had a record year. When the brands are all having record years, something good is happening in salons. Distributors being very positive for the most part, so all the signs and signals are great. Why is that? There's a lot of reasons. I'll do the short version. We have fewer salons for the demand in the country, right? If we look at it collectively, we had most likely fewer openings in a year than we've seen in the last 50 years.
You mean openings?
New salons.
Yes.
New salons. So we saw a net negative, and most people don't know this. In a given year, the history is that we have about 10% closed and 10% open, and it's been a fairly normal number. There's no proof yet that we have seen more closures during pandemic than a normal year. I'm starting to think we may have seen less. And I'll tell you, there's a reason for that. The logic being that some people who were there's always salons teetering. There's been salons teetering since the beginning of time. Some salons open, some do great, and some are in that weird, we don't know where we're headed. Do we hang in or not? I think some who were teetering went into pandemic and said, we were thinking about closing. We weren't quite there yet. We're not sure what to do. There's talk of all this government money. Who knows? Maybe it'll change our fortunes. Let's hang in there. Openings went to pretty much zero. So if you think in a normal year, we net about the same. Well, if we didn't have many openings and maybe closings were even a little lighter, economically, that is like golden for the salons that are left. My worry for the future is that we're going to have a supercharged opening coming up. Supercharged, meaning people are going to be opening who weren't necessarily going to be opening in the past. Demand will once again get out of whack with supply, and we will start headed in the wrong direction once again.
Gordon, I'm going to give that a light bulb moment. And
apologies for my dog.
No, I love your dog in the background. That's awesome. That's a light bulb moment. I really didn't think about that. Gordon, I thought it was going to be a bloodbath in March of 2020. Mm-hmm. I heard predictions of 30 to 40% of salons closed. Yeah, what you're saying is that, doing the math here, we have closures, and the ones that probably should close, no new openings, net, it creates a more level set, which I think is good for the industry.
Yeah, well, net, it means there's less salons and less working hairdressers likely in those salons. So if net, that movement puts us in a better place. Now our concern, at least for people like me, is that we will begin to move in the wrong direction for the wrong reasons. Because as always, the barrier to entry to open a salon is extremely low. Young people coming into the industry are encouraged in many ways they're encouraged to think of salon ownership as the golden ring. We've been telling people that my entire career. We've been arguing about it in parts of the industry for our entire career, because the majority of people who come into the industry are not going to be salon owners, don't really have any business in being salon owners. And it wasn't even their dream until somebody put it in front of them. And so that is a dysfunction, I believe, in our communication within the industry that has created serious economic problems over decades.
All right, let's get to some of your ask yourselves, and no particular order. So you're good on your toes here. So I'm gonna the ones that I think would be very relevant for this group, and this is a great group. I've already seen some of the people on this call, and there's some of my favorite people in the world and very successful leaders in the industry. So you had a question. I'm going to go to price increases now, okay? And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this one, but you said, ask yourself, how do we give owners and professionals the confidence to raise prices annually? Let's talk about that.
It's like business 101 in the rest of the world. I mean, you know, I always say to young people who are struggling in the salon, if they reach out to me, one of my first questions is like, when's the last time you raised prices? And most younger salon owners I talk to struggle with that, and almost it's usually the same answer, like it's been a couple of years or never or whatever. My response is, okay, so take a step back, think of your life, big picture, your business and your professionally as well as your personal life. Tell me one thing that has not gone up in price in the last year. Just think it through. Rarely can anybody tell me anything, which is the beginning of a conversation of, this is part of life in modern economic times, you know, that the value of money changes, the value of things changes. And simplistically, you know, if bread goes up from $1 to $1.02 and all you got was $1, you can't afford bread anymore. I mean, that's oversimplification. Price increases are a must in business. Whether it's 1% or 10% or 2%, there's math to help you figure that out. It does not need to be overcomplicated. We have inflation. It means the value of your money this year is less than last year. It's that way every single year. If you're not increasing prices at a reasonable level once a year, you're making a big mistake. And the more often you raise prices, the less clients question it.
I love that your question is, how do we give owners and professionals the confidence? You know, the confidence. And we've talked about price increases quite a bit on these roundtables. And I think it was about 6 weeks ago, we had someone share a list of price increases, bread, gas, mattresses, and salons were on the bottom. Salons had the lowest. All right, I'm gonna go to my next one for you. Okay.
Yep.
I know you're a technology guy. And one of my recent focuses, both personally and professionally, is to learn more about technology. I'm really trying to go deeper into understand technology. Companies in this industry are coming in with massive amounts of money, you know, and I've talked about that a little bit. So let's get to technology a little bit, because your question was, where is it? It is, I want to make sure I word it. Where is your question? Oh, here we go. How can we better educate professionals on the power of technology to transform careers, businesses, and lives? What do you mean by that?
Well, especially start with the general consumer, especially the younger generation, they grew up with it. And I think if you have ever been involved in a family situation, I only as a visitor to a family situation of taking a young person's device away, whatever device it is, you start to understand perhaps at least how certain generations think of this stuff, even if we don't understand it. It's like, why would someone be that bothered that they're going to lose possession for a short amount of time of a piece of technology? Well, there are so many things. It's not only about entertainment, it's about efficiency. It's about managing my life. It's about knowing where I'm supposed to be, when I'm supposed to be. You know, it's about how I communicate. And all those things apply into our business world as well. And so especially with the younger generation coming up, I think so much of it, they get it. So they show up in this sometimes archaic looking industry. It's like, well, where's the tech stuff? You know, like, you know, everything in my life, you know, it has a technology connection. Where's my technology connection in the salon? What do you mean you don't believe in online booking? You know, as a 17-year-old, you know, I know how to book things. So I think so much of it is appreciating not only what it's doing for the world, but there's a generational issue that's quite profound. And the natives to digital are now approaching 30 years old. So we can't even, you know, say, oh, they're kids, or they're not here yet. They're here, they have expectations. And so it's just fitting the larger expectations that surround us Like the conversation of technology is everywhere, so the fact that we're ahead of where we actually are, which is not even 50% of salons using, online booking, is a problem. I think if the schools could find a way to start to bring technology, not only as a way that they teach, but as a mindset towards going into business. If I was working in the school, and I worked in the weeds of school the first 7 years of my career, and I spent 2 years helping to run the Pivot Point School in Chicago, and so much of what we worked on besides the craft was giving students the mindset to succeed in a salon. And if I was in a school today, I would be telling students, if they're not technologically together, don't even do the interview. I wouldn't go. I would not suggest you go to work in a salon that does not have online booking, because I don't think they're long for this world. But that's just my attitude, speaking very broadly and generally. I might say that differently if we were in the weeds talking about specific salons.
I got some of your slides here with some of the stats, and you just alluded to one. By the way, use the chat, guys. We'd love to hear from you if you have any questions for Gordon, any comments, whatever. But here you have technology integration remains low. Only 46% offer online booking. And then you have another slide that, let's just see here. This one was really interesting. 49% offer touchless checkout and check-in.
Which I would argue, by the way, it was probably 42% before the pandemic. It's like this touchless stuff is not.
And then you got 26% offer virtual consultations. That's probably, it was probably zero before, wasn't it?
It's probably zero before, and I would argue if it's 2 or 3% that are actually actively offering them, I would be surprised. I cannot find a salon in my general daily conversations, which are somewhat random, people contacting me, occasionally targeted. I can't find folks who find it an ongoing business thing now that they've reopened. I talk to my celebrity hairdresser friends. At that level, it's a little bit more real, but I don't think that statistic tells the entire story. And my opinion may be off. I may be very wrong, but I don't think it's a thing.
I'm wondering if any of you listening in today, are any of you offering virtual consultations? And the other question is like, are you, or did you, and then stop doing them? Let me go to your last one, and I don't want to spend on time in this. And this isn't for our group. Only 57% have a salon website. So let's. All right.
But what I would say there, that it is interesting because the majority of salon websites, I would say, are overdone when you look at the trend in websites. So I think very interesting, like the way that you approach math with creative people. And when I look at anything that comes from Qnity, there's always a very visual, very straightforward and simplistic way for me to grab onto complicated ideas sometimes. I think that's what websites need to be for consumers today. The days of the portfolio glamour websites, so look at us, how cool we are, that's a wasted effort, that could be put to use creatively in other areas. People just need straightforward, easy to understand, and how do I get booked and contact you?
Gotcha. All right, let me go on to, all right, here's a good one. And this has to do with self-employment. Ask yourself, how do we inspire more to have a business owner mindset in an industry dominated by self-employment?
Mm-hmm. This is one of the scarier numbers, in my opinion, because the way that we educate at the school level, and again, I spent 25 years in the schools, and I still stay close to schools, and I have great appreciation for everything they do, and especially for the struggle. It is not an easy thing during any era, to do what has to be done. But again, mindset of young people, they come to us with a certain mindset and it evolves. And I think so much of what happens in school is an opportunity to kind of set it, into the right direction. Mm-hmm. And I think that if we're going to talk to young people about what are the job opportunities, we also need to talk about what are the simplistic bullet point, skills and knowledge and things that are connected to each of them. If we're really, really clear about what entrepreneurship is, and the kind of person who is most likely to succeed, there's no, it's not cookie cutter, but they need to hear certain things. When young people call me and say, I'm thinking about going independent, I ask them 2 questions. I said, the first one is, what percentage of your current business is walk-ins? And that usually stops people in their tracks. It's like, well, about 20%.
Hold on. That's a light bulb moment. Would you say that again? Say that again. I really, I think this audience would appreciate you repeating that. That's a really insightful comment.
Yeah, so I get a lot of young folks who reach out to me. I know them through my travels and through Instagram, and I love talking with them. So I often get, I'm thinking about going independent. What should I do? And I got more of those, of course, at the beginning of pandemic than ever, but they've been coming for a long time. So I settled on two questions I ask everybody. It's the same one. So one is, what percentage of your current business, your life behind the chair, comes from walk-ins in the salon where you work? Because they're talking to me from the commission salon. Usually stops them in their tracks, because it's usually 20, 25%. And sometimes they're a little confused. They'll be like, well, X%, and then kind of like stop. And I'm like, well, will you have walk-ins in your suite? And then it's like, oh, well, it's on the second floor and there's no window. So I'm like, no walk-ins, So that's question number one. Question number two is, what time do you have to be at work every day? Well, right now I have to be here every day at 10. What are the chances? I said, think deep on this one. What are the chances that you will show up for yourself as your own boss at 10 o'clock every day? And I get some hems and haws around that. Usually it's a deeper conversation, but it's like, do you have the self-discipline to put in the time to have the life that you want to have? Because if you think it's going to be easier, whatever you're experiencing now, whatever troubles, you might get rid of some of those troubles. But if you think being your own boss is easier than whatever it is you're going through, you need to make a list of the attributes. So again, I think if more of this was explained from a mindset perspective in school, it would be helpful. The other thing that would be really helpful, I think, is that instructors in beauty school, we need to better educate them about what salon ownership is about, because their predominant focus is technical, number one, and the business stuff that they teach is often based on the book stuff, not the experience stuff, because a lot of them don't have a lot of experience in the salon business itself. And so I hear too often teachers recommending people go whichever way they felt didn't work for themselves. So we have a lot of educators saying, oh, go rental because commissions suck for me. They leave off the for me part. And I'm not picking on teachers, but this is just human behavior. And so I feel like there's a missing piece of knowledge at the school level that is that if it was put in place properly in different situations would completely change how young people think about their career path. I don't think we think about career path in a big way. We spend too much time telling people you can be anything you want to be.
Well, all right. So I wanted to ask you a different question, but based upon what you just said, I'm going to go on to another one of these. Ask yourself. So you said, ask yourself, what if we put the same level of energy that goes into student recruitment towards improving career longevity? That's a good question.
Yeah, this is to me, this is the most profound thought that has come out of the pandemic for me personally. We have forever had, as every industry does, we have a problem with people who come and go. We, as someone who worked in schools for 25 years, to me, the most heartbreaking thing was seeing a young person who I happened to bump into and went, wow, this person's going to be somebody, they're going to make it. And then they disappear. It's heartbreaking. We have always had, a high level of turnover. And so what does the industry collectively talk about as a solution to this? Like when we think about what are the industry conversations? The industry conversations, for example, about independence 12, 15 years ago was outlawed, like make it illegal. And there was an effort to do that. That was the collective powers that be, kind of conversations. When it comes to the workforce, salons need more people. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to find more young people. We're going to support the schools and encourage getting more young people in, which we should always support the schools. And we always need young people. But the other side of the coin never gets talked about. Like if this industry has a large problem with turnover, what is the larger industry doing? What are brands doing? What are the associations doing? What are groups that can come together doing to big picture? Put attention on reducing turnover in the industry, because if we reduce turnover, the hard work that we have to do to bring young people into the industry, it doesn't go away, but the math gets easier. And so many people get lost in that time between graduation and the first 2 or 3 years of being in a salon, close to 80%. And so it's like, what can we do to help those young people have a better chance of making it? And everyone shouldn't make it. That's not how it works in any industry. But there's almost no conversation about this topic in my entire career.
I'm stepping into the mindset. I'm looking at people on this, people that are joining us today, and it's a great group as usual. And I'm thinking of James Griffith, for example. We've had conversations James called me, he says, I've never had turnover before, and we're offering everything we possibly can for longevity. So how do you deal with the salon owner that feels like, oh my gosh, what else can we do to promote longevity? We have great benefits, we have great pay, we take care of people, we allow them to have time off, but they still are surprised and scratching their head like leaving. So how would you, because totally agree with you, but what if a salon feels like I'm doing all those things? What else can I do to promote longevity, Gordon?
Well, it starts with understanding, the math around your employees and your business relates to employment. So every business has turnover. You are going to lose people fundamentally. So I've worked at rather large companies, and two of which I was on what were called the HR departments, human resources committees on employee retention. So big companies take a really serious interest and actually institutionalize processes and also kind of almost an investigatory way of looking at the business, saying, these are companies that, one of them had 700 employees and one of them had several thousand. And so, but they understood we lose so many people. So it was a never ending focus on how do we bring people in? And yes, how do we support the people we have to make them stay longer? But it began with an understanding of what is our natural turnover? And without that benchmark, it's hard to even know how to feel, because otherwise you just will always feel frustrated with each person that leaves, So I think you've got to have a benchmark against something, and it's not easy to do as a small business, and the industry doesn't keep the data. Our industry is horrible at data. You referenced it in the beginning.
Hold on. Say that again. Our industry is horrible at data.
Horrible at data. I'm leaving Qnity out of the conversation. I'm talking big picture.
I think it's a fundamental issue in the beauty industry that no one talks about. There's no standardized profit and loss statement for the beauty industry. It's like one of the only industries I've ever heard of.
Yep.
And being involved in some industry think tanks, that it's very detrimental. So I'm going to go on a soapbox just for a moment. Okay.
Please.
You're the guest, but I'm just going to take 15 seconds. So many people don't go into the industry because there's not accurate data in terms of earnings for career professionals. Steve Reese is on this call.
We're gonna argue on this one, but let's go.
Yeah, well, okay, all right. But I believe that lack of data is a really big issue in this industry. So anyway, back to you. And if you want to push back on that or have commentary, that's
I only want to push back that if you look at the data, it's fascinating. So I was the executive director of the National Cosmetology Association for 10 years. So I work with the labor department. I work with every state board in the country. I work with most of the state legislators. I worked with the Occupational Safety Council. We worked with all of them. And it was always fascinating. But what's interesting about the data is, and we get upset when we see the data almost always. The government's like, average hairdresser makes $27,000 a year. Oh my God, can't be right. Because all my friends are six-figure hairdressers. But all of the hairdressers are not six-figure hairdressers. And when you start to do the math, I would argue that if you do the math that the government uses and take what little data we do have, how big is our industry? Our industry claims to $64 billion a year. Actually, we slid down to $62 billion. If you start to work those wages up the entire revenue picture, it's not far off. The typical hairdresser in America, if the average hairdresser in America is making, $32,000 a year, I would say that would be optimistic, And again, I have so many friends who make such a great living. We should never forget that we have a very large percent of our industry who live in the first couple of years of their career. It takes time. So I don't get upset about the numbers. People take them personally offensive because they're like, oh, I'm going to be judged. And it's like, no, they're talking about this big giant number. And no, we always, and I said this at the presentation, we tend not to talk about the almost, I would say 30-40% of salons who are outside of what we think of as the mainstream. I have salons in my neighborhood that have had placards in front of their doors for the last 5 years for $9.99 haircuts. And they're there and they're never going away. They're not part of chains. They probably do off books. I don't know what they do, but there's a giant part of the industry that is not what this crowd thinks of it. And they're part of our math and they're part of our data, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, let me agree with everything you said. And I want to get on to growth next, but I want to add one final point. And this isn't me like getting the last word by any means. But one of the things I thought was very insightful from Steve Reese was he said, okay, so those numbers are true. what Steve said is, all right, what if we identify a segment of the industry that we refer to as career employees? What is their earnings?
Well, absolutely.
And how do they sort of the filter? Qnity talks about earn more money, do what you love, have quality of life. They answer overwhelmingly positive for earnings, doing what they love and have quality of life. Yeah. When you segment the industry into career employees, 30 or more hours a week, which by the way, one of the things that you said in your study was 60% in the industry.
The PBA study.
Sorry. Sorry, you caught me on that one. Sorry about that. You said 60% from the PBA study work less than 32 hours. This is a part-time industry. Is that a fair statement?
It is, and I would project that because of such a low response rate from employees, that I believe the part-time rate is even higher. And also because it was a population of association members who would skew more towards the quote unquote professional, I would argue. I think the numbers could be significantly greater, in part-time. And I think, the good news is we're an industry where a person has that ability to make a choice. The bad news is, that sometimes those choices are for reasons we don't talk about. Again, family, people, what a great industry that especially women, but all people, can have the flexibility once they get their career established to be part-time and have a family. I mean, there's all kinds of good stuff about the flexibility this industry offers. I know too many hairdressers over the course of I'll say the last 10 years that I talk to who do work 2 jobs. The second job is a job where they can make enough money where they can afford to be a hairdresser making less money. And I'm not exaggerating. I know too many people extremely passionate, about their careers. They can't make enough money behind the chair to survive. So they have a second job and they work full time between 2 jobs, but the other job makes more money. That makes me sad. That makes me sad.
This is such a great conversation, and based upon some of the feedback, they love your questions, by the way, and how you framed this. Let's get on to growth. And here's your question, but I want to make sure that in this topic about growth, you get to the subject of frequency of visits. So here's your question. How do we help salons with record new clients maximize retention so that recovery is sustained?
Right. Well, if you talk to the software companies, they pretty much all consistently would tell you the data on first-time client retention is low. It's historically been, a problem. And if we believe that this new client, I'll say phenomenon that we've seen, across the industry has to do with the pandemic, it would just make me concerned that if new client retention has been a problem, and we've seen client loyalty sliding the last, I would say, since 2008, 2009, since that recession, it's been slowly moving in the wrong direction. The pandemic opened the door for even my 85-year-old mother, who's been going to the same hairdresser for 15 years, to change hairdressers. And it wasn't anything other than she was bored. My 85-year-old mother changed hairdressers because she was bored. She was afraid to change before that. She told me that. She'd feel bad, but now my friends, we're all kind of making moves, so I'm going to move. So that worries me, number one. And again, I go back to where we started in the beginning. We've long known what it takes to take care of clients and keep them happy. It's just doubling down on great service, great communication, in a modern way, and really, really understanding just how important every single client is. And it's customer service 101 on steroids, but we need to recognize this every salon needs to look at its own numbers. And if they see a significant growth in new clients, something's changed, right? So we need to be thinking about our business perhaps in a different way, at least stepping back and go, hey guys, we have a lot more new clients. Why do we think that is? Are there things we need to be concerned about at getting them back? What's our rebooking look like on all these new clients? And so I think there's just a focus that needs to change whenever you see a spike like this.
I want to get to online learning, but before I do that, what's going on with frequency of visit? I think you had some data on frequency of visit that a group would be interested in.
Yeah, it was, I don't have the slide in front of me to remember exactly. And again, it was a mixed bag, so there was a very healthy percentage. I think it was close to a third who were increasing frequency of visit. There's another, you may have the info on the slide, I'm not looking at it, but another chunk that were the same. And then another chunk that had gone down, but collectively the majority were the same or coming more often.
So net, it's, early in the pandemic, average ticket went through the roof because client count was down. You know?
Yeah.
but it sounds like that's changed. Let's get to online learning. I could talk to you all day, Gordon, but unfortunately
Same.
you can't, and nor could the group. I'm going to be back on with you in an hour, and we're just getting warmed up. All right, let's go to online learning. I think this is also a real good one for our audience here. Ask yourself, how do we lead the industry to a better future by leveraging online learning? And you had all sorts of different things. Yeah, you don't have the data in front of you, but speak to online learning and the future.
I think the most important thing to say is that we've all been saying throughout my entire career, and I'm sure everybody on this call, has heard these things or said these things themselves, is that there is nothing more important or powerful in moving a career or a business forward than education. That conversation's been since the first day I got here, 40 some years ago, in a beauty school, listening to a beauty school owner say something like that to the students. And we've always said it. So more education is a good thing. One of the things that the survey showed that pre-pandemic, that close to a third, it was like 27 or 28% in that prior year, took no education. So, and we've been saying forever, more is better for whether you're taking a few classes, more is better. Taking no classes, more is better. But the numbers don't move. Well, digital opened everything up. The numbers exploded. People took digital education in numbers that nobody expected. They're profound. And when you look at the data about the future, what was fascinating is that, and without going deep into it, basically the picture that is painted is, yes, people want to go back to real classes. We all do. That's normal, that's emotional, that's human. But when you look at the math of what people did and what they project to do in real classes, the number of people not going is about the same. The number of people taking 5 classes or less is about the same. And those taking 5 class or 6 classes or more goes down by almost 50%. People taking online classes, the opposite. About 20, 25, 26, 27% prior year took no digital classes. The expectation, a lot of them took them during pandemic. The number who will not take a digital class in the future was cut in half. And the number of people who will take a lot of classes went up exponentially. So I think the community, the larger industry, has discovered what we've been saying forever, which is to get educated and you'll learn more, and have found an easier way to do it. Because again, we've been banging the drum for 40 years to take more classes, and it hasn't changed very much. So I think the change moment is here. And what matters most is how those who produce education, what they do with it, and whether we can, as we come out of this, continue to do great stuff online, and most importantly, understand better how to use all these tools like we're using right now. And because it has to be good, it has to be dynamic, it has to be, we've learned to blur our backgrounds, Tom.
Yes.
It may sound like a small thing, but it's not.
Yeah. Gordon, have I missed it? Is there any big insights that you have as we move into wrap up and we acknowledge you? Is there anything that's like, Tom, you missed that key point, anything?
Just a reinforcement that in any one of those topics, everything boils down to mindset for me. I think that we're in this moment where this word has become more commonly used than ever before. It's talked about in so many different ways. And I think that, just being in the right mindset to be open to a lot of the questions that we just talked about, to be open to the possibilities, and also to have empathy, which I think comes through mindset with the struggles of your employees, the struggles of your clients, a mindset of success, a mindset of empathy, a mindset that keeps you open to technology, a mindset that hopefully allows you to double down on the things that need to be done going forward that maybe we didn't do quite enough of before, like, manage our numbers.
Gordon, tell us about Harebrained, and you have a moment to unapologetically promote your brand, your mission. Do a commercial. I don't care. You never asked
Thank
for
you.
But tell us about Harebrained. I know you have a big event coming up in March. I hope, as you said, we hope the gods are with you that event. So. But talk about Harebrained. What people should do with Harebrained,
Yeah. Well, number one, follow us. I mean, Harebrained is a community, began as a community of hairdressers. Randy Taylor and Gerard Scarpesi, 2 working hairdressers, found it. They're both educators, have a long pedigrees, successful behind the chair, successful salon owners, and successful educators. Gerard, most known for his work at Sassoon, and then Paul Mitchell, Aveda, and ultimately Arrojo. And it was a hobby for them. They started this thing before there was an Instagram, and it was a place where hairdressers could go outside of Facebook and commune on a variety of topics, but most importantly, celebrate the craft and celebrate it online in a place where mom wasn't going to throw a comment down about, somebody said it to me early on. They're like, I love Hairbrained because I could post my pictures of my mother's and say how pretty it is. And so it was truly a professional platform, and it grew completely organically. Never has a dime been spent in growing the audience. And first few years, it very quickly grew to 10,000 followers before there was an Instagram, but it was some of the best and smartest hairdressers in the world. Today, we're coming up on 2 million. And we are now
2 million what?
Followers across the different platforms. Yeah, so 2 million followers across the different platforms, and Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and our own platform. And so out of that, we've evolved into several things. First and foremost, we work with brands who want to be in front of our community. So that's a third of our business model. Because we have such a large audience, and because our founders have a great passion for tools, we have something called hairbrained.pro, hairbrained.pro, it's a URL. You can go there and get great deals on tools. And we sell very high-end tools, only Japanese steel and scissors as an example. We're very picky about the tools that we sell. And then we launched an educational initiative called HB as in Hairbrained, HB Live, live.me. So hblive.me, not .com. And that's our educational platform. We've been up for 3 years. We have 12,000 students in it who pay for education. We have really inexpensive courses, that you can buy individually, or you can get a $99 all-year subscription to everything that's on the site. And that's our biggest passion, And then in March, we have the Hairbrained Video Awards, something we've been doing for 8 years. We're in New York. We hope to get together with about 500-600 people and celebrate. Interesting, the last Hairbrained Video Awards was in New York City on March 9th of 2020. Wow. We were in a hotel sweating it out while the IBS New York was being canceled. And I was running from store to store trying to find sanitary wipes because it was the early days of them telling that might be helpful. And the community came together around us and said, we know how to be safe. We're having the event. And we did. And we had not a single case come out of it, thank God. And now we're hoping to have this one. So that's Hairbrained. Hairbrained_official is the place to look for us on Instagram, and you'll find everything else. I have a podcast called the Hairbrained Conversations Podcast. I encourage folks to look at that. We're coming up on 1 million downloads in about 4 or 5 weeks. That's exciting for me to start the year off. Tom mentioned that earlier, and I want to invite you, Tom, to be a guest soon. You're working with many of our sponsors. I'd actually have you and Aaron have on together. So we'll get that on the calendar. And I want to say thank you to you and say, as I said in front of an audience of industry executives, I think the work that Qnity is doing is so important. It's so unique and special. I'm such a fan because I believe truly that one of the missing elements of success for so many in this business is a lack of understanding of math and money and numbers. And you guys have risen to the challenge during the pandemic in a way that's just like so inspired, So, thank you for all the work that you're doing. And thank you for having Hairbrained here today. It means a lot to us.
Thank you, Gordon. And it doesn't surprise me you want to draft Erin. She's usually the first choice anyway. So anyway, you are such a great guest. I want to officially welcome you to a community. And let's everybody give Gordon a virtual round of applause. Give him a shout out in the chat. Say hello to him. We will officially award to you the $1 million light bulb. This will be in the mail to you very soon.
Thank you.
And this means that, of course, you will be invited to the Phil. And so anyway,
and I hope to see everybody at the Phil. So it's in Arizona.
It's in Arizona. It's May 5th. So you will be one of the people celebrated. So Gordon, thank you again for being our guest. See you at the Phil.
Thank you. See you all at the Phil.
All right, bravo. All right, so I want to see who's with us today. You always like to give a shout out. Anna and Ashley and Bonnie and Candace and Christine, Chrissy, Jackie, James, Jan, Joe, Karen, Carrie, Carla. We got coast to coast here. Kate and Con, thank you for both of you, your comments. Good morning, Linda and Lisa and Louisa. Hello, Linnell and Mark and Megan and Melanie, Melissa, Nina, Sam, Scott, Steve, Terry, Vanessa, and I think I might have missed a few other people. Let me see what else. Now, I do want to get a little bit of Gordon. If you want to disengage, you're welcome to. I know I'm taking.
Then I will.
Okay, thanks again.
Bye, guys.
I do want a little bit of feedback from the group. I'm interested, and I'm going to show you something. Okay, so at the Phil, we will be awarding the golden light bulb, or might be golden light bulbs. This, and I'm revealing this. I would like to know from you. We'll be doing 2 years of these roundtables with light bulb moments galore. How do you think, as a community, we should decide who to award the golden light bulbs to? So put it in the chat, send me an email, send me a text. How do we go about acknowledging what to me has been an amazing brain trust? But how do we decide? How do we decide? Because I don't want to be the one deciding. So that's a question for you. All right, gather votes, Carla, right on. All right, let me just see what else I have for you guys today as we wrap up. All right, so past recordings of this are on YouTube. If you want to listen to this again, I was talking to Megan Jasper. Good morning, Megan. By the way, Megan, we're coming to Arizona in February. I need to talk to you about that. Anyway, pardon everybody else for having to listen to that. But I know that these recordings on YouTube are very helpful. The reason I brought up Megan is Megan said that one of our episodes you listened to 3 times. I don't want to say who it was for. It might have been for Win Claybaugh, but use these. I mean, we need to refill our bucket, and certainly our guests provide such great information and ideas. So we do have the roundtable at 12 o'clock today for schools. It'll be the same guest. It'll be Gordon. And I do want to again say, please put it on your calendar. We're going to celebrate 2 years of light bulb moments on Sunday, May 15th. All members of our Brain Trust will be there. It will be an amazing event. It'll be celebratory. It'll be in conjunction with the inaugural year of the Phil. We announced the Phil. We announced these dates. It was probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago. I know there's some other events at the same time. But our event, you really need to be there. So registration is going to open. I think it's either the end of this week, the beginning of next week, but it's happening very soon. Save the date. Also, he did talk about math and how we inspire a math-oriented format, and certainly our new money course that covers these essential skills are so important. We will have a version of the money course, which is basically money success made simple and visual. We'll have that available for salons. It looks like it'll be available in the beginning of the second quarter. We're super excited to really anchor in something that we're putting a flag and a stake in the ground, is we really have to raise the level of financial literacy in this industry. People don't know how to read their paycheck. They'll leave their job because they don't understand their true earnings. And so we really feel like we can make a big difference together. Closing thoughts: a mind stretched never returns to its original form. And certainly great ideas such as those shared by Gordon today is designed to stretch our mind. And once you stretch your mind, the knowledge puts you in a position to empower you to have even a better future. Let me now look at the chat here today, see if there's anything else here. We've got some great comments. They like votes, great information. Let us see what else here. Khan, great to see you joining us. Hello, Nina. Amazing, so on and so forth. So, all right, guys, I know you've got to get on with your day, and I'm just kind of talking. So I will wrap this up. We will see you next week. See you at the Phil also. Bye now.